The storm raged outside. Thunder cracked across the sky as lightning illuminated the darkened house, casting eerie shadows across the walls. Inside, the small family of four huddled together, a sense of unease hanging heavy in the air. The twins, barely 12 years old, sat quietly at the kitchen table, staring at the glowing screen of a strange device they had found hidden in their bedroom. The device had no buttons, no instructions, yet it hummed with an energy that felt far too familiar. It was as if it had been waiting for them all this time. Sarah, their adoptive mother, paced back and forth. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She had known something wasn't quite right about the twins ever since they had come into her life, but she could never put her finger on it. They were just different. The way they moved, the way they spoke, even the way they smiled, it all felt too alien, too perfect to be true. Jason, her husband, stood by the window, his eyes scanning the storm. He felt the same sense of unease but was too proud to admit it out loud. It wasn't like him to feel anxious over something as trivial as a storm. But tonight felt different. The air seemed charged, alive with anticipation. He tried to shake off the growing fear in his chest. Suddenly, the hum of the device grew louder, a high-pitched tone that seemed to resonate in their bones. The twins looked up from it, their faces pale and blank, their eyes reflecting the same eerie glow as the device. Sarah froze. Something wasn't right. "Are you two, okay?" she asked, her voice unsteady. The twins didn't respond. They simply stared at the screen, their hands trembling as they held the device. Jason stepped forward, his voice commanding. "Hey, put that down. We don't know what that thing is. It could be dangerous." But before he could reach them, the room plunged into darkness. The storm outside roared louder, the winds howling as the power went out. In the pitch-black kitchen, Sarah's heart raced, her breathing shallow. "Jason," she called, her voice cracking. "What's going on?" "I don't know," Jason replied, his voice tight. "We need to get out of here." The twins stood up slowly, their movements unnatural, stiff like marionettes. Sarah's breath hitched in her chest. They didn't look like her children anymore. They didn't look like children at all. Something deep inside her told her this moment was pivotal, something was about to change. Without warning, a flash of blinding light erupted from the device, filling the room with an otherworldly glow. Sarah shielded her eyes, but even through her hands, she could feel the heat radiating from it. Then, in an instant, everything stopped. The glow faded, the storm outside went silent, and the room returned to its natural state of darkness. The twins dropped the device, their faces frozen in shock. Jason and Sarah rushed to them, but the twins remained motionless. Their eyes locked onto the ground as if they had seen something that no human mind could comprehend. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking as she knelt beside them. The twins didn't speak. Their eyes flickered with confusion, then fear, before they finally looked up at their adoptive parents. "We didn't do it," one of them whispered, her voice trembling. "We didn't make it happen." "What are you talking about?" Jason asked, his voice sharp with concern. The other twins' eyes were wide, pupils dilated. "It was a message. From our home." A chill ran down Sarah's spine. Home? These children had never spoken of a home other than the one they had shared with her and Jason. They had been abandoned as infants, found alone on the outskirts of the city. They had no memory of their past, no birth certificates, no family history, nothing. Yet now, they were speaking of a place they couldn't possibly know. "Your home?" Sarah repeated, her voice thick with disbelief. The twins nodded in unison. "We came here for a reason. But we don't know what it is." Sarah's mind raced. "What do you mean? You were brought here to live with us. You're part of our family. You've always been part of our family." No, the first twin said, her voice distant. We were sent here. For something else. Jason's eyes flickered to the broken device on the floor. Something about it seemed alive, like it had a pulse of its own. He took a cautious step toward it, but before he could reach it, a loud thud shook the house. The sound came from outside. He turned toward the window and saw figures standing in the yard, silhouettes outlined by the flashing lightning. They were tall, imposing, and not human. Get inside, Jason ordered, his voice low but firm. Now. Sarah grabbed the twins by the shoulders, guiding them away from the window, her pulse quickening. They ran to the back of the house, to the safety of the basement, where the rest of the family had always hidden during storms. But before they could get there, the front door burst open. Figures in dark, weathered uniforms stepped inside, their faces obscured by helmets, their presence cold and unwelcoming. Mom! Dad! The twins cried out in unison, grabbing hold of Sarah and Jason's arms. The intruders said nothing, only advanced, their steps heavy and deliberate. Sarah felt the hairs on the back of her neck rise. Who were these people? What did they want with her children? One of the figures spoke, his voice low and mechanical, like it was filtered through a voice modulator. The twins. They are to come with us. Who are you? Jason demanded, stepping forward to protect his family. What do you want with them? The figure didn't respond, but the other two stepped closer, reaching out as if to grab the twins. Sarah pulled the children closer, her heart racing in her chest. She wasn't about to let anyone take her kids, not without a fight. Leave them alone. Sarah shouted, her voice breaking with fear. The figure's helmet turned toward her, the eyes glowing a deep blue. They are not your children, he said, his tone cold. They are royal heirs. And they have been hidden here for too long. The words hit like a punch to the gut. Sarah recoiled, her mind struggling to process what she had just heard. Royal heirs? What did that even mean? These were her children, her twins. They couldn't be from some distant royal family, not in a million years. Could they? The twins looked up at the strangers, their faces pale and confused. What are you talking about? One of them whispered. Do not play games with us, the figure said. We know what you are. You have lived here long enough. It is time to come home. The tension in the room was unbearable. Sarah couldn't breathe. Her heart pounded against her chest, each beat louder than the last. Everything she thought she knew about her children was being ripped away in front of her eyes. Jason stepped forward, his fists clenched. They're not going anywhere with you, he said, his voice filled with defiance. The figure seemed to consider him for a moment before speaking again, this time more menacingly. You don't understand. There is no choice. The twins are the future of an entire world. They must return to their rightful place. Or all will be lost. Before anyone could react, the figure raised his hand, and suddenly the twins collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Sarah screamed, rushing to them, but the figures quickly moved in. They grabbed the twins, lifting them effortlessly, as if they were nothing more than dolls. No! Sarah screamed. You can't take them. They're my children. I won't let you. But the figures ignored her, retreating toward the open door, carrying the twins with them. Jason moved to stop them, but another figure stepped in his way, blocking his path. Sarah was frozen in place, helpless, unable to do anything but watch as the people who claimed to be from another world took her children. As they stepped out into the storm, one of the figures turned back, his voice echoing in the silence. This is only the beginning, Earthling. The truth will come out. Your children are not who you think they are. The door slammed shut, leaving Sarah and Jason alone in the dark, their hearts shattered. The storm outside had not subsided. It had only grown worse, as though nature itself was mirroring the chaos that had erupted inside the house. Sarah stood frozen in the darkened hallway, her mind struggling to comprehend the nightmare unfolding before her. Her children, her beloved twins, had been taken, not by some ordinary criminal or stranger, but by beings who claimed they were royalty from another world. She clutched the doorframe, her body trembling, her eyes darting around the room as if waiting for something to jump out at her. Jason had already begun pacing, his steps heavy and agitated. What just happened?" he muttered, his voice cracking with disbelief. "I don't know," Sarah whispered, shaking her head. "I don't know anymore." For the first time in years, Sarah felt lost. The twins, Alex and Emma, had come into her life under the strangest of circumstances. They had been abandoned as infants, found on the outskirts of the city one cold winter night. They had no birth certificates, no family history, no explanation of who they were or where they came from. They had no connection to anyone, except for her and Jason. The children had no memory of their past, no recollection of their real parents, and no real history beyond the small life they had built together. And now, these strange figures, talking about royal bloodlines and alien worlds. Could it be true? Jason stopped pacing and turned to face her, his face pale, his eyes wide. "Sarah, we need to find them. We can't just sit here." She nodded, her hands shaking as she wiped away the cold sweat that had gathered on her forehead. "But how? They just disappeared. And those people, whoever they were, they're not normal. We can't fight them, not like this." "We don't have a choice," Jason said firmly. "If we don't act now, we might never see our kids again." His words cut through Sarah like a knife. She hadn't realized just how much she had taken for granted, the simple joy of having her twins with her, the quiet moments, their laughter. Now, everything felt like it was slipping through her fingers. They had to do something. But what could they do? The twins had been taken by beings who seemed to know far more than they did. And the words they had spoken, the twins were royal heirs, the future of an entire world, kept echoing in her mind, a mantra she couldn't shake. Before Sarah could respond, Jason's phone buzzed. His eyes darted down to the screen, his breath catching in his throat. "It's from the twins," he said, his voice barely audible. Sarah rushed to his side. "What? How? How is that possible? They were just taken." But Jason was already tapping on the phone, the message appearing on the screen before her eyes. It was a single line of text. "You need to know the truth. They were sent here for a reason. We are not who you think we are." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. They wrote that? From wherever they are?" Jason didn't respond. He was too busy scrolling, trying to find any other message, any other sign of where they were or how they had sent this. But there was nothing else, just that one cryptic message. "Sarah. I don't know what's going on. But I think we have to trust this message." She nodded, trying to calm her racing thoughts. The storm outside raged on, but inside the house, it was as if the world had come to a standstill. After what felt like hours, Jason grabbed his jacket. "We need to figure out where those people came from, Sarah. There's no way. They're just random strangers. We need to find them, find the truth." He reached for his keys, and Sarah reluctantly followed him. They had no plan, no clear idea of what they were about to do, but they knew they couldn't sit still any longer. They needed to act. The road to the truth wasn't going to be easy. The city they lived in was large, and finding any trace of the mysterious figures who had taken the twins seemed impossible. But Sarah wasn't one to back down. She had raised her children for 12 years. She had loved them, cared for them, and watched them grow. Now she would do whatever it took to bring them back. The couple drove in silence, each of them lost in their thoughts. The rain had begun to fall in sheets, blurring the windshield, making it even harder to see through the storm. Jason kept glancing at the phone, as if the twins might somehow send another message, but the screen remained blank. They drove for hours, tracing the path they had taken the night of the abduction. The house was isolated, nestled in a small neighborhood at the edge of the city, surrounded by woods. The road to the house was long and winding, with little more than a few dim streetlights to guide them. The house itself stood at the very end of the road, an old, two-story building that seemed to be sinking into the earth itself, as though it had always been part of the landscape. They reached the house just after midnight, the rain now coming down in torrents. The front yard was eerily quiet, but something felt off. Jason parked the car, his hand gripping the wheel as he surveyed the area. "Do you think this is where they took them?" Sarah asked, her voice hesitant. Jason didn't answer immediately. Instead, he opened the car door and stepped out into the rain, glancing around nervously. "I don't know. But something about this place feels wrong." Sarah followed him, pulling her jacket tight around her as the cold wind whipped through the trees. They moved cautiously toward the front door, their footsteps muffled by the soft patter of rain on the grass. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and a figure appeared in the doorway. He was tall, cloaked in dark clothing, his face hidden in shadow. "You're looking for them," the figure said, his voice deep and unyielding. "The twins." Jason stepped forward, his body tense. "Who are you?" he demanded. "What do you know about my children?" The figure didn't answer at first. Instead, he stepped aside, gesturing for them to enter. "If you want answers," he said, "you will have to listen. But you are not the only ones searching for them." With no other choice, Sarah and Jason stepped inside, the door closing softly behind them. The house was strangely warm, a stark contrast to the chill outside. The walls were lined with old tapestries, strange symbols woven into the fabric. It felt as though they had crossed into another world entirely. The figure led them down a narrow hallway, their footsteps echoing in the stillness. Finally, he stopped in front of a large wooden door and pushed it open. Inside was a room filled with ancient artifacts, crystals, old books, and paintings that seemed to depict otherworldly landscapes. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and in the center of the room was a large stone pedestal, upon which rested a glowing orb. "This is the truth," the figure said, his voice a mere whisper. "The twins were sent to Earth for a reason. They are not just children. They are the last hope for an entire civilization. Their bloodline is tied to a royal family, one that is dying. And now, the galaxy's future rests on their shoulders." Sarah's heart raced. "What do you mean? What are you saying?" The figure turned toward them, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "They are royalty. They are the heirs to a throne that was lost long ago. And now, the forces who seek to destroy that legacy are coming for them." Jason stepped back, his hands raised. "No. No, this can't be happening. These are our children. They're not aliens. They're not royalty." The figure didn't respond. Instead, he nodded to the orb, which began to glow brighter, casting an eerie light across the room. "This is their destiny," he said. "And you can't protect them from it. No one can." The room felt colder now, as if the very air had shifted. The glow from the orb cast long shadows across the walls, the strange symbols on the tapestries seeming to pulse with an energy of their own. Jason's eyes darted around, trying to make sense of everything, but the more he learned, the more confused he became. The figure who had led them here, tall and cloaked in shadow, stood by the orb, his hands folded in front of him as though he were waiting for something. The silence in the room was suffocating, broken only by the rhythmic hum of the glowing stone. Sarah felt a knot form in her stomach. She had always known there was something unusual about her children, something special. But aliens? Royalty? The last hope for an entire civilization? Her mind reeled. She had spent 12 years raising the twins, protecting them, loving them like they were her own. And now, the very foundation of that reality was crumbling. What do you mean, the last hope? Jason's voice cracked as he took a step forward, his eyes not leaving the figure standing before them. The figure's eyes, glowing faintly, seemed to pierce through him. Their world is dying, he said. The empire that once ruled their planet is no more. It was destroyed in a war centuries ago. The royal bloodline was thought to be extinguished. But the twins, Alex and Emma, are the last of that line. They hold within them the key to restoring balance, to bringing hope back to their people. Jason's breath hitched. What are you talking about? These are our children. They're not some alien heirs. Sarah could see Jason struggling to comprehend the impossible. She was struggling too, but deep down, a part of her had always known that there was something extraordinary about her twins. She had always felt that they were meant for something bigger than she could understand. The figure moved closer to the orb, his fingers brushing the smooth surface as if it were a living thing. The galaxy is a delicate place, Mr. and Mrs. Turner. The twins may not remember their true nature, but their heritage runs deep. They were sent here, to Earth, to protect them. And now, you must protect them. Because there are forces out there, forces that would stop at nothing to see the twins' bloodline eradicated. Who are these people? Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Why would anyone want to kill them? They're just children. The figure paused, his gaze turning toward her. It's not that simple. The royal family's enemies are many. Some are still out there, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. And they know the twins are here. That's why they've already started searching for them. The message you received, it wasn't just from your children. It was a warning. Jason clenched his fists. A warning? A warning for what? Your children are in danger, the figure replied, his voice quiet yet urgent. The sooner you understand that, the better. Sarah could feel the weight of his words pressing down on her chest. She had never been one to back down from a fight, but this? This was unlike anything she had ever imagined. And what do we do now? Jason asked, his voice low. How do we protect them? How do we even find them? The figure stepped back from the orb, his eyes narrowing as he studied them. There are people who can help. But first, you need to understand the gravity of the situation. You can't protect them alone. You'll need allies, people who know what the twins' bloodline means. Sarah's heart raced. Allies? Who? The figure nodded slowly. There are others like me, scattered across the world. They've been watching over the twins from the shadows, waiting for the right time to act. They are the ones who can guide you, teach you how to protect them. But how do we find them? Jason asked, his voice tinged with frustration. We don't even know who these people are. How do we know who to trust? The figure's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. That's the challenge. But I can help. I can give you the first clue. Suddenly, the orb's glow intensified, casting an otherworldly light throughout the room. The strange symbols on the tapestry seemed to come alive, swirling in intricate patterns. Sarah blinked, unsure of what she was seeing. But as the figure reached out to touch the orb again, the glow faded, and the room returned to its eerie calm. Follow the map, the figure said, his voice softer now. The next step lies hidden, but it will reveal itself to you when you're ready. Jason exchanged a look with Sarah. A map? What did that even mean? Before either of them could respond, the figure turned toward the door. Go. Your journey has just begun. You have no time to waste. Jason didn't hesitate. He grabbed Sarah's hand and pulled her toward the exit. But as they crossed the threshold of the door, the figure spoke once more. "Remember," he said, his voice cold and final, "the galaxy is a dangerous place. And you are not the only one searching for the twins. There are others who will stop at nothing to take them from you." The door slammed shut behind them, the echoes of the figure's words ringing in their ears. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the world felt colder. Jason's mind was racing. They had learned so much, and yet so little. The twins were royal heirs to an alien empire, and the forces that would stop at nothing to kill them were already closing in. "Where do we even begin?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking. Jason didn't have an answer. But he knew one thing for certain: he couldn't lose the twins. Not now. Not when they were so close to uncovering the truth. He pulled out his phone and glanced at the screen. The message from the twins was still there, hauntingly cryptic: "You need to know the truth. They were sent here for a reason. We are not who you think we are." He needed to find them. He needed to uncover the truth. But first, they had to find the map. And he had no idea where to even start looking. "Let's go home," he said, his voice hard. "We need to think. There's something more to this, and we're going to figure it out." As they made their way back to the car, the air felt thick with uncertainty. Every decision they made from this point on could be the difference between life and death for their children. They had no time to waste. The race was on. Jason couldn't shake the feeling of urgency that clung to him as he stared at the map in his hands. The weight of the situation pressed on his chest with each passing minute. They had learned so much, yet felt like they were still standing at the edge of an unfathomable abyss, with no clear way forward. The map, such an innocuous thing, but it held the key to everything. The cryptic lines, the foreign symbols, and the swirling pattern seemed to hum with an energy he couldn't quite explain. He turned it over again, searching for something that would make sense, something that would guide them. But no matter how many times he examined it, the symbols remained stubbornly obscure. "Jason, what do you think?" Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts. She was standing across from him, her arms crossed as she leaned against the kitchen counter, her eyes fixed on him. Jason exhaled, dropping the map onto the table with a thud. "I don't know, Sarah. This feels too big. How do we even begin to understand something like this?" The words felt hollow in his mouth. The weight of the responsibility pressing on him was immense. How could they protect their children when they had no idea what they were dealing with? How could they uncover the truth when they couldn't even read the first clue? Sarah walked over, her eyes scanning the map for a moment before she placed her hand on his shoulder. "We'll figure it out. We always do." There was a quiet determination in her voice, a steady conviction that Jason desperately needed to hear. He glanced up at her, offering a faint, uncertain smile. He wanted to believe that, truly he did. But right now, nothing seemed certain. Their children were at the center of something far bigger than either of them had ever imagined. Their lives were in danger. The stakes were high. I don't understand what's happening, Sarah. One minute, everything is normal. The next, we're staring down a map that doesn't make sense, and we're learning our kids are the heirs to a royal bloodline we've never heard of. It feels like we've been thrown into a story we don't know how to finish. Sarah sat down beside him, her eyes softening. "We'll learn. We'll figure it out together. But we need to start somewhere. This map, whatever it means, is the first step." Jason looked down at the map again. He traced one of the lines with his finger, trying to focus. The symbols were unfamiliar, but there was something oddly familiar about them. A sense of déjà vu crept up on him, but he couldn't place it. "I don't know, but I think it's connected to that place," Sarah said suddenly, her eyes narrowing at one of the patterns. "Look here. This symbol, it almost looks like." Jason's eyes followed her gaze. That's That's the same as the one on the orb. The one in that room. She nodded, her face lighting up with the spark of realization. Exactly. Maybe we're looking at this all wrong. Maybe the map isn't something we have to read like a normal map. Maybe it's something we need to experience. Jason's brow furrowed in confusion. What do you mean? Sarah reached out, turning the map in her hands and tracing a particular line with her fingers. What if the symbols represent locations? But not in the way we think. Maybe they lead us to places, and when we reach those places, we'll understand more. We'll unlock the secrets. It was a theory. But for the first time since they'd been given the map, Jason felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this wasn't about deciphering every symbol all at once. Perhaps the map was meant to guide them, piece by piece, toward the truth. All right, he said, his voice steadying. Let's try it. We'll follow the clues, one step at a time. The first clue. The journey began the next morning. The map was now folded carefully in Sarah's bag, and Jason had arranged for the kids to spend the day with their aunt. He didn't want them near this, not yet. They were still too young to understand what was happening, and he wasn't sure how to explain any of it without scaring them. They didn't know where. The first symbol on the map would lead them, but there was an odd pull, an energy that seemed to emanate from the place itself. They had chosen the first spot based on Sarah's intuition. The symbol matched a location near the outskirts of town, a seemingly unremarkable forested area. The drive there was quiet. The weight of their shared uncertainty hung in the air, making every word feel too heavy to speak. Jason's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, the engines hum a soft background to his thoughts. What were they walking into? Who were the people they were supposed to trust? As they pulled up to the forest's edge, a sense of foreboding settled over them. The trees were thick, their towering trunks casting long shadows across the ground. It was eerily silent, as if the entire forest was holding its breath. Jason turned off the engine. This is it, he said softly. What now? Sarah opened her door and stepped out, her boots crunching against the gravel. I don't know. But we need to start looking. They walked into the forest together, the map held out in front of them. The air was cool and damp, and the sound of distant birdsong did little to ease the tension building between them. With every step, Jason felt as though they were walking deeper into a place they didn't belong. Look, Sarah said suddenly, stopping in her tracks. She was pointing to something on the ground, a large stone, half buried under moss. The markings on the stone matched the symbol from the map. There was no mistaking it. That's it, Jason whispered. His pulse quickened. That's the symbol. He crouched down, brushing the moss aside to reveal more of the stone. It was old, weathered by time, but the symbol remained clear. As his fingers brushed the stone's surface, he felt a strange, tingling sensation, a pulse of energy that seemed to resonate through him. This is it, he said again, his voice low. This is what we've been looking for. Sarah knelt beside him, her eyes wide. What do we do now? Jason didn't have an answer. The symbol on the stone was undeniably the same, but what did it mean? Was this some kind of marker? A portal? Or something else entirely? He stood up and turned in a slow circle, scanning the area. And then he saw it. A faint shimmer in the air, almost imperceptible, hovering in the space between the trees. It was like a ripple in the air, distorting the world just slightly. Sarah, Jason said, his voice hoarse. Do you see that? She followed his gaze, her face paling as she nodded. What is that? I don't know, Jason said. But it looks like a doorway. Without thinking, he stepped toward it, Sarah following close behind. As they crossed the threshold of the shimmering air, a rush of cold, electric energy swept over them. It was as if they had stepped through some invisible barrier, into a new reality. They found themselves in a vast, open space, no longer surrounded by trees but by a strange, alien landscape. The sky above was darker, the stars sharper and closer, as if they were standing on a world far removed from Earth. What is this place? Sarah breathed, her voice full of awe and disbelief. Jason could barely comprehend what he was seeing. This place, it wasn't Earth. This wasn't the forest they had walked through moments ago. The ground beneath them was made of smooth, metallic surfaces, glimmering with an unnatural glow. "This is it," he whispered. "This is what we've been searching for." Suddenly, the ground began to tremble beneath them. The sky above pulsed with light, and the stars seemed to shift. And then, from the distance, a figure appeared, tall, shrouded in darkness, approaching them with a slow, deliberate gait. Jason's heart skipped a beat. Jason's pulse raced as the figure approached. He could feel the weight of its presence in the air, like the atmosphere itself had thickened. Sarah stood frozen beside him, her eyes locked on the shape that was slowly materializing from the shifting shadows. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the soft hum of energy that seemed to pulse from the ground beneath their feet. The figure came closer, and Jason finally discerned the details. It was tall, almost unnaturally so, with a long, flowing cloak that billowed around its form, despite the lack of any wind. Its features were obscured by a hood, but there was an undeniable power in its movement, an aura that demanded attention. It walked with the confidence of someone who had seen eons of time pass in the blink of an eye. "What is it?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Jason replied, his own voice strained. "But I think it's here for us." The figure stopped a few feet in front of them. There was no sound as it came to a halt. For a long moment, it stood still, as if assessing them, its presence both intimidating and intriguing. Jason could feel his heart thudding in his chest, but he didn't dare take a step back. They had come this far. There was no turning back now. Finally, the figure spoke. Its voice was deep, resonant, and strangely comforting, as though it carried the weight of ancient knowledge. "Humans," it said, its tone both curious and knowing. "So fragile, yet so full of potential. I wondered when you would arrive." Jason felt a chill race up his spine at the sound of those words. "Who are you?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "I am what remains of a long-forgotten lineage," the figure replied. "A guardian, a keeper of the truth you seek." Sarah stepped forward, her eyes searching the figure for any sign of emotion. "The twins," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Are they really royal heirs? Is that what this is all about?" The figure's head tilted slightly, as if considering her words. "Yes," it said slowly. "The twins are heirs to a throne that has not seen its rulers for centuries. Their birth was foretold long ago. Their destiny has been written in the stars, and now, it is time for them to claim what is theirs." Jason felt his throat tighten. "But why them? Why our children?" The figure's eyes, if they could even be called eyes, as they were hidden beneath the hood, seemed to glow faintly, as if an ancient wisdom was contained within them. "Because they are not like other children. They are not like you. They are the descendants of a race far older, far more advanced, and far more powerful than any civilization on Earth. They carry the bloodline of rulers who have shaped galaxies, not just planets." Jason could barely breathe. His mind raced as the pieces began to fit together. His children, the twins, weren't just ordinary kids. They were part of something far beyond anything he had ever imagined. But why Earth? Why were they here? Where did they come from? Jason asked, his voice hoarse. The figure paused before answering. "From a world that no longer exists," it said. "A planet that was destroyed, its people scattered across the stars. But some of them survived. And they found their way to Earth, to the twins. It is their bloodline that has been carried through the generations, hidden from all but a few. The revelation hit Jason like a physical blow. The idea that his children were part of an ancient, powerful race, he couldn't wrap his mind around it. He had always thought of them as just his kids, nothing more, nothing less. But now, they were the center of something that could change the course of history. The figure took a step closer, lowering its hood. Jason's breath caught in his throat as the face of the figure was revealed. It was not human, but it was close. The being before him had a smooth, silver-hued skin that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Its features were sharp and elegant, almost ethereal, with high cheekbones and a strong jawline. Its eyes were a deep, glowing amber, like twin suns burning with ancient knowledge. "I have watched over them for many years," the figure said. "And now, the time has come for them to embrace their true heritage." Jason shook his head in disbelief. "Why didn't you tell us sooner? Why didn't you help us?" The figure's expression was unreadable. "I was bound by ancient laws, human. I could not interfere directly. The twins' awakening must be their own, in their own time. But now, their destiny is unavoidable. The forces that destroyed their homeworld are still out there, and they will stop at nothing to ensure the twins never take their rightful place." Jason's mind whirled. He had thought they were just dealing with a few strange occurrences, odd dreams, and unexplainable events. But now, it was clear. There were enemies out there, enemies that wanted to prevent the twins from discovering who they truly were. And if they succeeded, everything Jason had come to love would be destroyed. "What do we do?" Jason asked, his voice barely a whisper. The figure's expression softened, its eyes filled with something akin to sorrow. "You must protect them, human. And you must guide them. There will be challenges ahead. You will face enemies, and you will face betrayals. But you are not alone in this. You are part of something much larger, much greater. And together, you will prevail." Jason stood there, staring at the figure. He felt a surge of determination well up within him. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he couldn't back down now. He had a family to protect, a world to defend, and a truth to uncover. "I'll do whatever it takes," Jason said firmly. "For my kids. For the truth." The figure nodded once, the faintest of smiles appearing on its face. "Then you are ready. The path ahead will not be easy, but you are not alone." With that, the figure turned and began to walk away, its cloak flowing behind it like a shadow in the night. Jason and Sarah stood in silence for a long moment, letting the weight of the situation sink in. "What now?" Sarah asked quietly. Jason exhaled, his hand instinctively reaching for hers. "Now we go home. We figure out what comes next. We protect them. And we find out what we're really up against." Jason's heart raced as he stood in front of the massive, glowing doorway. The alien technology that surrounded him hummed softly, its lights flickering with a pulse of energy that seemed to resonate in his chest. The chamber ahead seemed vast, stretching farther than he could see. It was a place unlike any other, a mixture of organic and mechanical, as though it had been built by a civilization far beyond anything humanity had ever known. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts. He turned to find her standing beside him, her face pale, but her eyes burning with determination. "I have to be," Jason replied, his voice tight. "We're here to stop them. To protect the twins." Sarah nodded, but the worry in her eyes was still evident. The twins, Zara and Zane, were inside the chamber, deep in the heart of the alien facility. The truth about their royal heritage had been laid bare, and with it came a dangerous reality: they were being hunted by an ancient enemy, one that sought to prevent the twins from fulfilling their destiny. This wasn't just about the twins anymore. It was about the survival of Earth itself. Jason took a deep breath. They had come too far to turn back now. He had been told by the mysterious figure, the Guardian, that they were ready. But what did that even mean? Ready for what? "Let's do this," Jason said, his voice filled with a sense of resolve. He reached out, pressing his hand to the glowing surface of the door. It shimmered and parted, allowing them to step inside. The moment they crossed the threshold, Jason felt the weight of the place bearing down on him. It was as if the very air itself was alive. Aware of their presence. He could hear distant, echoing sounds, voices, perhaps, or the reverberations of some otherworldly force. The chamber before them was vast, its walls lined with pulsating blue lights. At the center stood the twins, Zara and Zane, standing as though they had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. The twins were no longer the children he had known. They had grown in the weeks since the truth was revealed, their powers becoming more pronounced. Zara's eyes glowed with a soft amber light, while Zane's hair shimmered with streaks of silver, a sign of his growing connection to their alien heritage. "We've been waiting for you," Zara said, her voice calm yet filled with an ancient wisdom. Jason was taken aback by how different she sounded, how much older, how much more knowing. Zane stepped forward, his gaze fixed on his father. "The time has come," he said quietly. "To embrace what we were born to do." Jason swallowed, his heart heavy with the weight of his responsibility. "I don't understand. What are you two supposed to do here?" Zara looked up at him, her amber eyes reflecting the glow of the chamber. "We were born to lead. To unite the scattered people of our race. The ones who survived the destruction of our homeworld. And to face the enemy that destroyed everything." Jason's breath caught in his throat. "The enemy? Who are they?" Zane spoke then, his voice low but filled with conviction. "They are called the Vorak. An ancient race that destroyed our homeworld. And now, they are coming for us. For our bloodline. They want to erase us from existence." Jason's mind reeled. The Vorak? He had never heard of them, but the way Zane spoke about them left no doubt in his mind that they were powerful, ruthless, and bent on destruction. "We have to stop them," Sarah said firmly, stepping forward beside Jason. Her hand found his, squeezing tightly. "We can't let them destroy everything." Zara nodded. "It's not just about us, Mother. It's about the future of all worlds. The Vorak are planning to invade Earth. They have been using our bloodline to unlock a weapon, a technology that will allow them to conquer this planet, and many others. We can't let them succeed." Jason's mind raced. What is this weapon? What can we do to stop them? The room seemed to pulse as Zara's voice became more urgent. "The weapon is hidden deep in the Vorak base. We have to find it before they do. If they unlock its power, they will be unstoppable." Jason turned to Sarah, her face filled with resolve. He knew she was as terrified as he was, but they had no choice now. The fate of Earth, of the twins, of everything, was in their hands. "We'll do it," Jason said, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling in his mind. "We'll stop them." Zane's amber eyes flared with intensity. "We can't do this alone. We'll need to activate the portal to the Vorak's base. It's the only way to get to them before they find the weapon." Jason looked around, the room humming with alien energy. "Where is the portal?" Zara gestured to a nearby console, a series of floating, holographic symbols glowing in midair. "Here," she said. "We can open it, but we must do it together. It requires all of our energy combined." Jason nodded, stepping forward. He didn't fully understand how the technology worked, but he trusted Zara and Zane. He could feel their connection to something ancient and powerful, something beyond the limits of human understanding. It was clear now that the twins were not just special, they were the key to saving Earth. The four of them, Jason, Sarah, Zara, and Zane, joined hands, their energies beginning to hum together. The air in the chamber crackled with power as the portal began to form. Jason felt a surge of energy course through his body, and for the first time, he could feel the weight of what the twins had inherited. The power. The responsibility. It was as if he, too, was awakening to something much greater than he had ever imagined. The portal shimmered to life, a swirling vortex of light and energy. Jason could feel the pull of it, the force drawing him toward it. This was it. The moment that would determine everything. Stay close, Zara warned. Once we step through, there's no turning back. Jason held Sarah's hand tightly, looking into her eyes one last time before they stepped forward into the unknown. The world around them shifted, and in an instant, they were no longer in the chamber. They were standing in a vast, desolate landscape. Dark skies stretched above them, and the ground beneath their feet was cracked and barren, as though it had been ravaged by war. In the distance, Jason could see the silhouette of a massive structure rising from the ruins, an enormous fortress, brimming with the unmistakable energy of the Vorak. They had made it. But the battle was just beginning.